In one of the most terrifying made-for-television movies of the 1970s, Trilogy of Terror holds a top spot, right alongside 1972's The Night Stalker. One of the reasons for this is director Dan Curtis, who directed both Trilogy of Terror and The Night Stalker. Trilogy of Terror is broken up into 3 different stories. The first 2 stories are quite forgettable, but the third, named Amelia, is anything but. If you've never seen Trilogy of Terror, there are spoilers ahead, so watch it first if you don't want to know what happens. You're probably wondering why this made-for-TV movie is rated so high in the history of television horror movies, when only 1/3 of the movie is considered a classic. That's because that particular segment packs such an overwhelming punch that it completely overshadows the first 2 stories. Karen Black, who stars in each segment, turns in a powerful and very convincing performance in the third story as Amelia, a single woman living alone in a high-rise apartment building. Karen was afraid that she would be stereotyped for the rest of her career, but she was able to shake the stereotype and ended up with a very diverse portfolio of movies, from independent films to major motion pictures. Sometimes she even appeared in as many as 7 films a year. She was the only actor in the Amelia segment, which was filmed like a one-woman play. Of the 3 segments, it was the only one where the original story's author, Richard Matheson, also wrote the script. Matheson wanted to make sure it stayed as scary as possible. Amelia is based on a short story that he wrote in 1969 called Prey. The other 2 parts are also based on stories by Matheson, but William F. Nolan wrote the scripts for those. In the story, Amelia returns home after a shopping trip with a box containing a wooden voodoo doll made in the likeness of a deformed Aboriginal warrior. The doll is armed with spiky, sharp, razor-like teeth and a tiny spear. A scroll that comes with the doll says that it holds the spirit of a Zuni hunter named He Who Kills, and that the gold chain on the doll keeps the spirit from escaping. Amelia talks briefly on the phone, canceling plans with her overbearing mother, who's giving her a hard time. She hangs up the phone, slams the doll down on the coffee table, and we see that the doll's gold chain has fallen off. Uh-oh. Now we see Amelia preparing a bath for herself to try and relax. She calls her boyfriend and cancels their date because she feels guilty about her mother. Then she goes to the kitchen to prepare supper. She uses a knife to prepare a steak and then puts the steak in the oven. This whole time, you're waiting in suspense as we all know that the Zuni fetish doll is lurking about somewhere. She walks back into the living room, turns on the light, and notices that the doll isn't on the coffee table anymore. She finds the doll's gold chain laying on the coffee table and starts to search for the missing doll. She looks under the table and then under the couch, where she pricks her finger on the doll's spear, drawing blood.
Well, I guess I found you. At least the tip of your spear.
As she keeps looking around, we hear the pitter-patter of tiny footsteps running across the floor.
Come out, wherever you are.
She hears a noise in the kitchen and finds that the knife has gone missing. She's finally starting to realize that things aren't quite right as she sees a tiny shadow running across the floor into the living room. When Amelia goes back to the living room, trying to convince herself that she's imagining things, the lights suddenly go out and the doll viciously attacks her, stabbing at her ankles with the missing knife. The voodoo doll is now out in the open as it continues to attack Amelia, chasing her around the room, making hideous noises as she tries to get away. The Zuni fetish doll is voiced by Walker Edmiston and is very effective in adding to the overall terror of the scene. Edmiston was never credited for his disturbing contribution to the film, but his work was chilling. Props also go to director Dan Curtis here for the quick, terrifying close-ups of the Zuni doll as it chases Amelia, making the doll seem truly alive. She runs into her bedroom, slams the door, and tries to call for help. The doll opens the door and climbs onto her bed with the knife in its mouth, ready to attack. She runs into the bathroom and locks the door, but the doll's not giving up. It shoves the knife under the door, trying to stab her feet, and then pops the door open, rushing in to attack. Amelia grabs a towel, wraps it around the doll, and then tries to drown it in the bathtub. When that doesn't work, she traps it in a suitcase, but the doll starts cutting a hole in the suitcase with the knife. Amelia tries to grab the knife, but instead cuts herself on its sharp tip. When the effects team was trying to figure out the best way to show Amelia being sliced by the doll, Black had an idea. She said they should just put blood on her finger, and she would hide her finger from the camera until the doll cut her. She finally grabs the knife and starts to stab the doll, hoping to kill it. The whole time, the doll is letting out blood-curdling screams. Finally, the doll stops struggling, and Amelia cracks open the suitcase. As she opens the case, the doll leaps out and bites down on her arm. She swings the doll around, smashing a lamp, but the doll chomps down on her neck. Bleeding and exhausted, she somehow manages to get the doll off her neck and throws it into the oven. The doll screams while it burns as black smoke billows out of the oven. When she finally believes the doll is dead, she cracks open the oven and is pushed back by the doll's evil spirit. She lets out a scream, and the screen fades to black. We next see Amelia from behind calling her mother, apologizing for the way she acted before, and inviting her over to spend the evening together. After hanging up, she rips the lock off her front door with her bare hands and crouches down like an animal with a big carving knife in her hand. We now see her from the front, stabbing the weapon into the floor while grinning and showing the horrifying teeth of the Zuni fetish doll whose spirit now lives in her body. Amelia is probably the only real reason to watch this movie, and if you only watch the third part, you won't be disappointed. Once the story gets going, it's a non-stop thrill ride of terror that'll make you think twice before buying a strange-looking doll with unusually sharp teeth. The Zuni fetish doll is thought by many to be one of the scariest dolls in movie history. One of the most chilling images in the film was the ending, with Karen Black grinning and showing her fang-like teeth, looking like a human form of the Zuni doll. That idea came directly from Karen herself, as did the conversation with her mother at the beginning of the segment. Karen wanted to make her mother seem more controlling and manipulative, so the viewers were more on Amelia's side when she told her mother to come over at the end of the segment. What do you guys think? Have you ever seen Trilogy of Terror? Did you like it? If you never saw it or would like to watch it again, you can see it on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's also currently streaming on Amazon Prime. As always, this is Rich from Rerun Zone signing off.